What is going on, everyone? When it comes to the Houston Texans defense, I think we can all agree that under head coach DeMeco Ryans and new defensive coordinator Matt Burke, this will want to be the best units for this Houston Texans team. Last year, this defense was last in every single category, minus the secondary. I mentioned many times before that Derek Stingley, Steven Nelson, Jalen Petrie, and Jonathan Owens did a very good job for this Houston Texans team last year. I think general manager Nick Caserio has added some pieces, right? He added a veteran to every single big position group. The secondary got Jimmy Ward. The linebacking core got Denzel Perryman. The defensive line group got Sheldon Richardson. And overall, I think this Houston Texans defense got better, and it's going to make me excited for week one. But before we get into who is going to start on this Houston Texans defense, welcome everyone to the 713 Houston Sportcast. I am your host, Ruben Calavillo. I drop daily Houston Texans content. Make sure you guys are following me on Twitter at 713HSP. And without further ado, last week we talked about the starters or the potential starters on the offense for the Houston Texans team. We would do the same on the other side of the ball. However, I still think the Houston Texans need to add some weapons on this defensive line, which was absolutely atrocious last year, right? I think edge still could be addressed because the Houston Texans will be throwing out Jerry Hughes and Jonathan Gennard there. Where Jonathan Gennard did not play a full 17 games, we were so excited to see a year 3 coming off an 8.5 sack season in year 2. With Jonathan Gennard, you know there is something there, but can he stay on the field? And then on the opposite side, Jerry Hughes, 38 years old. His best season was last year that he had in the past 5 years with 8 sacks. His first game against the Indianapolis Colts was one of the reasons why he almost won the game with an interception and then a sack right at a huge pivotal moment, all coming in the second half. Those are your two starting edges. I think the Houston Texans definitely need to add more, right? When you go to free agency, there is still a number of guys out there, right? Like Yannick Ngakoue, who at this point in his career is just a guy who could get to the quarterback, who will get you double-digit sacks. And then the former number 1 overall pick for this team, Jadeveon Clowney. What can he do with DeMeco Ryans, right? Coming back to the Houston Texans team, the team that drafted a number 1 overall. Can he finish the story much like what DeMeco Ryans is going to do? I don't know, but the Houston Texans definitely still need to add to the edge position. I think your two defensive tackles should feel a lot better than what you did last year with Sheldon Richardson, who you just gave a 1-year, $10.5 million deal. A very good 2 seasons with the New York Jets, right? Under Robert Saleh. He is going to be familiar with our 49er style of defense that we are going to play here in Houston. He should just be plugged in and play good right off the bat. Malik Collins, his 3rd year with this team, can he flourish in a better style of defense? Can he get back to where he was just getting to the QB with the 49ers? I'm sorry, with the Cowboys. This defensive line as a whole, with Sheldon Richardson, you obviously feel a lot better. But other than that, it still needs to be addressed. It still needs to be invested in. And I think the Houston Texans will do that in free agency, well, what's left of it, and the NFL draft. Your two linebackers, Denzel Perryman and Christian Harris. Christian Harris in year 2, you are very excited for under new head coach DeMeco Ryans. And as well as Perryman, right? DeMeco Ryans in his press conference here for the Houston Texans said that, you know, guys like Fred Warner, who were a 3rd-round pick and now considered one of the best linebackers in the NFL, I take pride, you know, in having a hand in that. So you know that this linebackers core is going to immediately get a jump in production. But the main concern is, can they play a full 17 games? Denzel Perryman was not healthy last year. Christian Harris this year started the season on the injured reserve list. Corey Littleton as well hasn't been healthy the past couple of seasons. There is no consistency there. And the only young blood there is Christian Harris and Garrett Wallow. I think the linebacking core, it needs to be addressed in the NFL draft. I don't think there's anyone left there in free agency. But for the first half of the season, Perryman and Harris, I think, will do very good. Your secondary, right? I think the Houston Texans will throw out their 3 corners, Derek Stingley, Steven Nelson, and Desmond King as your nickel corner, who I think has done a fantastic job the past 2 years for the Houston Texans. This secondary last year for Houston was the only bright spot. And you cannot say that for the past 3 or 4 years where the Houston Texans had one of the worst secondaries in the NFL. But with Derek Stingley, can he play a full 17 games? Can he play better in a defense where he is going to have more one-on-one opportunities against some of the best wide receivers in the NFL? Steven Nelson did a fantastic job being your number 2. And then when Stingley went out, your number 1 corner. And your 2 safeties, Jalen Petrie, who was coming off a 150 tackle season, 5 interceptions. You just signed your defensive captain, Jimmy Ward. I think overall this Houston Texans defense is going to get better. And then you add in DeMeco Ryans and Matt Burke. There should be no reason why this defense is not, half of the league. Right? I don't want to say a top 10, top 5, but I am expecting between 15 and 17 to be where this Houston Texans defense is ranked. You guys let me know what you think. As always, go Texans. You guys have a very blessed day.